mind did not have any concept of Vietnam, of Cambodia, of North and South Korea. We think that everybody should play fair. We're cut from the cloth of the British, who wore their fancy uniforms and marched in a row, and we knew who the enemy was, and we would march up to them and shoot them and blow them up with cannons because we knew who the enemy was. Well, not so much anymore. Not so much since really the 50s. Even during the World War II, World War I, the Western battle was with those guys in the uniforms. When it came to Korea, they didn't play fair. When it came to Vietnam, they didn't play fair. They sent children out with guns to kill people. They sent children out with explosives to kill our people. And we thought it was so despicable that somebody was going to shoot a kid in the head. We didn't understand it, and I don't know if we understand it now. There are kids now being trained to blow people up, to wear suicides, to wear vests, to commit suicide in the name of Allah. And we don't understand it. Until we understand that mind frame of the terrorist, that mindset, the mindset of the extremists, there we go, extremists, whether it be political, whether it be religious, whether it be psychological. If we don't understand the brain of the extremist, we're always going to be caught off guard, and we're going to be looking around like a deer caught in headlights saying, well, how'd this happen? How'd this happen? So we've had to do a shift in our thinking of how we are to deal with others. I will guarantee you over the Middle East right now, you don't have people necessarily in uniforms. You've got rebels shooting at the army. The army is pretty much seen. They've got the clothing on. They've got the armor on, the fatigues on, so you kind of know who they are. But it's hard to know who's shooting back at you. And the other thing that comes up in me is that here are groups, ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah. They will use innocent people in order to make a human shield so they don't get shot, because they understand the morality of the Western mind will not allow that to happen. We talk so many times about the casualties of war. We talk about the innocent that have died. And as well we should. It's deplorable and it's wrong. And if we don't want to do that, if we don't want to kill the innocent people, then we shouldn't be there to begin with. However, we are, and we need to start fighting by their rules. Remember, what I've said to you is that they believe that anybody that sacrifices for the cause is going to go to Allah anyway. So they can use these people as human shields. And even if they don't believe in Allah, if they're not a Muslim extremist or just a Muslim as a whole, well, you should be killed anyway. So it's to look at it with, this is insanity that has gripped the world by extremists that think that they have the only truth and that they're going to, by any means, move that truth around the world. It's kind of funny, once they get it, I'm not saying that they would, but once they get it, what are they going to do with it? then you're going to have the infighting from the different groups, because somebody's always got to be on top, right? Well, I want to go to the introduction of the book. And it states this: the book traces my unwilling participation in an all-involuntary rescue back through my life in a cult. It will cover my history and show under what circumstances I became involved with the cult and my life as a cult member. Later chapters cover what I learned during my healing process about cults, their structure, and methods of manipulation. These chapters provide strategies and advice about how to talk with cult members and what people can do to protect themselves and loved ones from becoming ensnared in destructive groups. The last chapter I discussed where I've landed in my manner of life in the police and the problem of dealing with cults in the democratic society. And this is the problem. We see it today. We are seeing the same thing played out in our country and other countries today. People will scream and yell and holler and fight and fume, kick their feet, screaming, pounding the ground, frothing at the mouth, saying that their rights have been taken away. They say that they live in a democracy. In a democracy, they have a right to be heard. And yes, they do. The unfortunate thing about this, and hear me very, very clearly, is that once these groups get in charge of a country, it goes from a democracy to a dictatorship. And those very rights that they claimed that they cried out to have, they will take it away from other people. I like that. This is in my book, and I'll read this because it's a little bit more succinct than what I said. You know, the Constitution of the United States draws a line between church and state. The Founding Fathers drew that line for a specific reason. They had learned from history that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people should also protect the people. Many early immigrants came to this country to escape religious persecution, resulting from government utilizing particular religious institutes to manipulate, suppress, and control its people. And I'm talking about Europe. They did not want a reputation of past persecutions, so they formed a government that was to be neutral to all religions. For this reason, our many religious organizations in the United States today are all afforded the protection of the Constitution. However, and this is what I was talking about before, what happens when some of these organizations abuse their rights and deny others their freedoms? What happens when children are denied medicine or medical attention because their parents believe their holy book tells them that such actions are their right? What happens when some self-proclaimed holy man tells his people the world is about to end, and it would be better to die at their own hands than from presumed evil of the world? What happens when children are led into prostitution because it is the best way to gain converts and to show your love for the leader? What happens when the group is told to destroy by any means people that may expose their true motives? What happens when groups stockpile guns and ammunition to start a new world order? What happens when bigotry and intolerance allows groups to persecute whomever they fear are their enemies? What happens when thousands of innocent people die at the hands of a few, believing it is their duty and even more their destiny to destroy the supposed infidels? I could go on with these examples, and by no means are any of these manufactured. What can be infuriating is the people that do such things are the first to cry foul when they think some right has been taken from them. with little thought about the rights that have been taken from their victims. Cults, extremists, other organizations have no problems whatsoever denying basic rights to their members, and their attempt to suppress the criticism of their detractors can become violent. They convince their followers that denial and self-sacrifice are for the good of the whole and ultimately will be rewarded, if not in this life, then in the next. The commitment and servitude would seem to be something to be admired, with one important exception, because they believe they've been chosen and are enlightened ones who will save the world and lead all others that are willing to the truth. They are also allowed to destroy all of those that would stand in their path. That's a whole lot that I said there, but it's the truth. And one of the things I also want to talk about is the fact that it's not just cults, it's not just these mass of people that want to take out another mass of people. We're talking individuals, we're talking domestic abuse, we're talking child abuse, we're talking trafficking abuse. One individual. You know, cults start with one and then add another. 2 people. Then causes 3, then 4, then the multiplication to something that can be absolutely outstanding in the amount of people that follow the same error. So when we look at groups, when we look at terrorists or when we look at cults, whether it's a communist cult or whether it's a white supremacist cult, I look at it like this. It's like a snake with the tail in its mouth. Whether it's the left or the right, the same manipulation will happen in order to get the people to stay with their organization. And that is important to understand. What I found out when I worked with people, whether it was in cults or whether it was abusive situations, the same dynamics were in both. The difference is a little bit within the abusive situation, the wife abuse or the spousal abuse, is that it's more emotional manipulation. It's more psychological, so to speak, manipulation than it is a doctrinal manipulation, as you find in major cults like the Moonies, Scientologists. You can go down the line. Scientology would be the biggest example of a doctrinal manipulation. Certainly there's a psychological and emotional manipulation as well, but that's altogether where a abusive situation, wife abuse, domestic violence, is that emotional side. And fear. You know, the fear within a domestic situation is that the abuser will either take out the person or the children or the parents, and they exhibit those violence tendencies in such a way that you have to believe that they do it. And it would be remiss and it would be dangerous to think that they wouldn't. Side note, like I said, we often see in these masses of groups and we can say, wow, you know, they're a bunch of goofy people. Well, what about that person living in fear that if they don't have the towels right, or if they don't have the socks pressed, or if they don't have the glasses set right, or if the meal's not done right, they don't know when that abuser is going to blow up on them and possibly have physical, if not certainly psychological ramifications of them being hurt. I'd like to read this too. Shopping for Paradise. The path to enlightenment, whether it is spiritual, political, or psychological, is fraught with the perils and